Hello, I'm Sean Phillips and welcome to my studio. This is where I've been creating comics for the last 37 years. I tend to approach drawing digitally very similar to how I do on paper. I still get people saying, oh, can I buy that page of artwork? And I say, well, actually, there's nothing on paper anymore, because I want it to look like it does on paper, but better. So I try not to get too seduced by all the bells and whistles that the software's got. How it works is that it's got digital versions of lots of different sorts of tools. So pens and brushes and pastels and charcoal and all that sort of stuff. The big differences are I've got total control over how it prints now. Before, I would draw on a piece of paper, it'd go in a FedEx box and it'd go to New York, and then someone else they could correct it, they can change things, they can move stuff around, but now I've got total say, there's no one else. I paint stuff digitally as well now, and that is a lot quicker than real paint and a lot less mess. The best thing about digital, I think, is that you can change your mind a lot, because there's always an undo. Especially in the painting stuff, if I decide, oh, I might paint that purple, it doesn't work, I can just press Control Z and I can try it in green or whatever. Whereas real paint, you have to do a lot more planning. This, I don't have to plan so much, I can just sort of try it, and if it doesn't work, I can delete it and start again. One of the drawbacks about drawing digitally is you can zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, and you end up drawing stuff that will never see print. You're constantly not trying to do that. Well, this is a comic called Kill or Be Killed, which is about a serial killer, nice cheerful stuff, written by Ed Brubaker, who I've been working with exclusively for about 10 years. And I'm working on my Cintiq with a software called Clip Studio Paint. It used to be called Manga Studio because it's software that's produced for comic artists, originally in Japan for drawing manga. This is the script for the page I'm working on at the moment. It's written a little bit like a play, where you get all the directions about what the actors are doing, or the characters are doing, and what they're saying, and what might happen in a caption or whatever. The first time I read the script, I think, how the hell am I going to draw that? That's impossible. And then I read it the second time and think, oh, actually, you can do it like this. Sometimes, even the first time I read it, I might have an idea straight away, and I'll do a little drawing on the page. Like the next page, I had an idea of how to lay the panels out straight away as I read that. Sometimes it comes to you just like that, and sometimes you have to really struggle. I tend to go with my first idea, I must admit. So from that, I then do little sketches in my book, and that's just a guide. That's not meant to be a nice drawing. That's just a guide to me to show me what I've got to then do before I get to the final page. So this page is quite an easy one because all I've got to do really is shoot some photo ref of me acting it out. Whereas if it was an exterior scene, I might have to go and find a photo of a subway or New York street or all those other millions of things you have to be able to draw to do a comic. I letter my own page as well, which is quite unusual for comics. Usually that's someone's proper job, is lettering pages. So I tend to make my lettering in Illustrator app and lay out all my panel borders and all the balloons and stuff. I export that as a TIFF into Manga Studio and start drawing over the top of it. So this is my first layer in blue pencil, not because it has to be in blue, it's just that if I was doing it traditionally on paper, I would use a blue pencil or a blue marker. Very rough sketches again of that, using my photo ref. Sometimes I'll trace over it, sometimes I'll have it on another monitor and I'll just draw freehand from that. Depends how lazy I'm feeling really, and how far away from the photo ref the characters are. If it's someone that's meant to look a bit like me, fine, I can just draw over the top of it. But if it's Batman, then there's a hell of a lot of difference between the photo of me pretending to be Batman and the drawing of Batman on the page. The storytelling is the important bit, because there's plenty of people who can draw a lot better than I can draw, but they don't know how to tell a story. Whereas I can do that, but I don't know how to teach someone else to do it, because there's a million different ways of doing it. No two artists would approach this same page the same way as I'd do it. Mostly I'd only like drawing people. That's the best bit. That's what, if I wasn't drawing comics, I'll be painting naked ladies, or men, I don't mind. And for fun, I go life drawing classes because that's what I like to draw. You never run out of things to draw when you're drawing people. They're so complicated. So that's the best thing about doing comics, is you get to draw people a lot. Well, as you can see, my studio is filled with books on comics and illustration art and stuff like that, and everything in here has probably influenced me a little bit. But I started off getting into comics when I was about 6. Marvel started reprinting their 60s work in UK in 1971 when I turned 6. So I really got into all that sort of stuff. So there'll be people like John Buscema, who drew lots of superhero stuff, but also did Conan the Barbarian comics. I loved his work. By the time something like Watchmen came out in the mid-80s, with Dave Gibbons' artwork, just not necessarily the way he draws particularly. I mean, I do like the way he draws, but the way he tells a story is amazing, you know, especially in this particular book where I know Alan Moore gave him a lot of detail of exactly what to show and how to do it, but Dave still put a lot of himself into it. So things like that, this sort of invisible art, really. Mike Mignola, who created Hellboy, but before that he did a lot of superhero stuff again for DC, so this is a collection of all these DC comics. So he does Superman and Batman and stuff like that. So I love his stuff. It's really well designed, it's compositionally, and you know the shapes he makes on the page are always really beautiful, and he uses a lot of black as well, which I really like. In my stuff I have a lot of black. I had a slight tidy up before he came out, but this is the thing I got last week, which is the Peanuts Sunday pages. So these are from the 70s, Charles Schultz Peanuts pages. That doesn't influence me as far as how I draw, obviously, but I was a massive fan when I was a kid. So, you know, I buy a lot of that sort of stuff, just to sort of makes me feel good about doing comics. Sometimes I'm sitting around thinking I've wasted my life. I should have been a proper artist. Not that comics isn't proper art, but sometimes I think, what if I'd been a painter? Maybe I could have, you know, done something important. And then I look at stuff like this and think, actually, this is just as important as anything like that. You know, so I probably haven't wasted my life. Today I haven't wasted my life. Tomorrow I'll change my mind, and maybe I have then.